I'm going to tell the story of how I first met Brian. So I went to college at a university very near here. And back in the day, I had quite the luscious head of hair. Very, very long, down to my shoulders. Some of you may remember it. And I walked into the scenic shop there the first day. And I saw this gentleman walk up to me and say, "Hey man, hair's real nice. But I'm gonna need you to tie that back because that's not gonna fly here." I looked this gentleman square in the eyes and said, "Okay, sure, fine." I then proceeded to go out and buy the brightest orange hat that I could find anywhere. And I wore that thing every day I saw him for the next 2 to 3 years. That was Brian.
I'm going to tell you the story about when I met Dan. And I've only called Dan for a short amount of time. Dan was not Dan's name in my mind. Because when Dan first walked into the shop that I was running, this fool walked in wearing a top hat. And I don't mean kind of a top hat, I mean stovepipe. Huge top hat. Dickens era curved kind of top hat. And I didn't have time to learn names on the fly the way that you're supposed to. I kind of had like just, here's kids, go do work. And I just shouted at him one time when I needed him to do something. I was like, "Hey, top hat, over here, do this." And he was like, "Okay." And once he responded to it, that was his name.
Years ago, when I was probably about 19 or so in college, I went to an improv show and they asked for a suggestion from the audience. I yelled out something pretty crude and blue humor. And the lady behind me called me out for it, and we started exchanging, not yelling, but arguments, strongly worded statements. And I just didn't turn far enough to see the large redheaded gentleman sitting next to her, who, as it turns out, was Dustin. And on Dustin's first day of work, he introduced himself. I said hello. As we were walking back to go to the scene shop, I was like, "Hey, by the way," and he was like, "Yep." And I was like, "Okay." That's my story. That's how I met Dustin and his lovely wife. Yelling at them. I would have gotten beat up. Check the gate.